be intuitive. She's there. So welcome, Jenn, and welcome, Sonia. So, I'm going to let Jenn introduce herself, but I have actually interviewed Jenn on my podcast. She's interviewed me on her podcast. And Sonia is all the way from Philadelphia. And if I don't know who's going to be here or who's not, but I'm going to press record. I'm going to share it in a link and put it on YouTube, and then you can use it in any way you need. So welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. Yeah, Teresa and I would say, I don't know, we're like fast friends. It's like we just get each other, and this is going to be a lot of fun. And what I love about Teresa, which I'm sure Sonia, you already know because you love her too, is her realness. She's like, let's just do it. We want to give everyone the best tools. We want to give them the real help, not just like theory and fluff, but no, how do we actually do it day to day in the grind? And I really appreciate that about you, Teresa.
Yeah, thanks. Well, life wore me down. And so it turns out I don't have all the barriers. That's probably actually true, by the way.
That's probably why we connect. If I could say Families Matter Most is the organization that I have started, and it's not specific to homeschool moms. However, I am a homeschool mom, and a lot of my clients are also homeschool moms as well. So I kind of get some of the more specific challenges that we face maybe in the trenches. And I work with parents to help them reach the hearts of their kids. So I teach parenting classes and workshops, but I also do family coaching. I do parent coaching, where I would say most of my efforts go is probably in two areas. I'm like super nanny. I go into homes and I help try and fix what's going on, whether it's kids not getting along or not listening, or parents yelling every day, or whatever that is. I've done all of those things, so I can help with that. And then the other big area that I spend a lot of my time is helping moms deal with overwhelm and mom guilt, which I know, Teresa, you really focus in on too. So we have a lot of shared, single-mindedness in that area.
Yeah, for sure. When it comes to mom guilt, maybe it's the phrasing, but I've had so many conversations. I'm like, I don't feel guilty. I'm like, maybe the only mother in history.
Good.
I don't know. Maybe I just need to call it by a different name, and I just don't know what that means for me. But Sonia, I want to invite you. I want to invite you as well to introduce yourself if you'd like to.
Thank you. That's so nice of you. Hi, Jenn. I'm Sonia. We live actually in South Jersey, very close to Philly. Like, Philly is our city.
Okay.
And,
wow.
Yeah. Yes. And I could have used some family coaching in the last. I was that mom who screamed a lot and who was very hard on herself, and it all flowed from there. Yeah. So I'm just like, I'm a recovering perfectionist, and I've been on like this journey. And I feel like homeschooling, even though it was very challenging in the beginning, I homeschooled 2 of my 4 kids. It actually it forced me to confront something. So it was actually like eye-opening, and in some ways it's healing. Not that say it's easy, but so I'm excited to see what you have to offer. And I love Teresa. Yes, that's true.
Yeah. Of course. The only reason people are ever around me is because I really love them already. I don't know what it is. The universe. That's how it goes. I mean, as podcasters, you get to invite into your world certain people, and they're not the ones that you think, I don't think I like that person.
Yeah.
So I would we can go in so many different directions, Jenn, but I heard your podcast episode with your husband about John Gottman and the 4 Horsemen. And that was a pretty significant moment for us too, listening to John and Julie Gottman speak about the things that can actually truly sabotage a marriage. And so I thought that would be a great springboard into a discussion about marriage in the homeschool, something that nobody talks about, which we should definitely be talking about.
Because we all have perfect marriages, right? And we have it all together all the time. We're teacher, we're mom, we're wife. I know there are some real challenges. I was thinking about it kind of in preparation for our discussion today, and thinking, I would love to know your thoughts on this, because it feels like, if I look back, my youngest is now 16. Sonia, we had 3 boys, and we're kind of on those final few years now. We're on the home stretch, and they're doing great, and it's so worth it. So that's all great. However, when I look back, I feel like what I wanted from my husband was I wanted support. I wanted him to help me and give me, I kind of wanted like a principal to come, and to give me tools and give me feedback and tell me what I was doing right and where I could improve. I kind of wanted that, but simultaneously, I didn't want his help and I didn't think he knew better than me. And I did have contempt. I did not think he would know what to do. And so I really put him in this really terrible place of, he became this garbage can that I would just put all of my frustration from the day, all of my anger and fear and self-doubt and guilt and all of those things, I'd kind of like blah it onto him.
Mm-hmm.
And I would want his support and help. But yet when he tried to give it, I would reject it. I was very angry at him. And then I had contempt and criticism. So am I alone in that?
Will you share what the 4 horsemen are?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't heard about John Gottman, his research on marriage, which you can find a ton of stuff on YouTube alone, is really useful to us.
Oh, okay, let me do a quick high level 4 horsemen. This changed our marriage when I learned these things and I realized I do this. I intentionally shifted and tried to change how I related to my husband, and it made a huge difference. So let me go over them. And then you'll see the contempt that I'm talking about. The 4 horsemen of the apocalypse in relationships, specifically in marriage. The first one is criticism. So we're attacking. We know, right? When we're criticizing, we're just looking for all the wrong everywhere. We're verbally kind of attacking our character's personality. That's one of them. And these have all been studied and proven to be detrimental and harmful to marriage. I'm going to save the worst one for last. So criticism is one. Defensiveness is another. When you're in an argument with your partner and you feel like you can't get anywhere because if you say, you know what, I'm really upset because you talked to me this way. Well, you did it last time. Well, that's not true. I didn't. There's a defensiveness there. And then you feel like you're going in circles. That's been proven to be harmful to marriages and contribute to the rate of divorce. The third one is stonewalling. And as women, we kind of do this. This is when we just shut down. Fine, whatever. Slamming the doors. I don't care. I don't want to talk about it. Everything's fine. What's wrong? Nothing, right? That's stonewalling. We know that something is wrong, but we're going to let our partner know that something is wrong, but we're not going to talk about it. And then the last one, and this one is a star in their research because this one, more than any of the others, was proven to really hurt marriage. And this is the one I think I did the most. This was contempt. They did research and they were able to predict. So they studied couples that were newlyweds and then they studied them over time and they kept on studying them. And then they saw how many of the marriages were successful and how many weren't. And they tried to, come up with patterns, and contempt was the biggest one. So eye rolling, huffing, like our body language, our tone of voice that says, you're an idiot. You don't know anything. You're stupid. Like, oh, it's, we don't even have to say a word. And yet we can put our hand on our hip or we can turn away and our partner knows that we just think they're this big. And that one above all others was proven to impact marriages in such a way that they were able to predict when they were studying newlyweds. They could look at them, and the ones that operated with tons of sarcasm, the ones where you could tell that person had no respect for their partner, there was contempt, there was sarcasm, they could predict, that marriage probably isn't going to last. And unfortunately, it was true most of the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really interesting predictors. And they actually have a book, and I forget what the exact title is, but it's something like seven approaches or something. Oh, turns out I can't go look or else I'll disappear. Okay, good. Well, anyways, it's worthy of reading as well. I'm gonna share that I have actually a Homeschool Mama Reading List for marriages because do you know why I started a book club? Because I'm always reading. And then I'm like, hey, I could write about this. I could talk about this. I love this stuff. But books have been obviously very pivotal for me. But I'm going to share a couple of books that have been really useful to us. Everybody, I think, do you both know this one? Love Languages by Gary Chapman. Is kind of like the entry-level marriage book. Welcome to Marriage. That's what I think. Also, I think the love languages are really useful, but also Enneagram, learning your spouse's or your partner's Enneagram number and understanding how you interact with each other, or Myers-Briggs, or any personality profiling is really useful. There is a book called Growing Yourself Up by Jenny Brown. Can't see it. That I think is a really powerful book because it essentially addresses how you aren't quite grown up yet. And we bring that into marriage. And it turns out we all bring it into marriage. Then there's a book by Sue Johnson called Hold Me Tight. And it really is about attachment and the concept of attachment as a grown-up person and how we attach or don't attach to our partner. But by far the biggest one that for me is actually, well, there's two, but Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. Teaches me how to speak because it asks me what are my feelings and my self-awareness around my feelings, but also my ability to share it with someone, discovering what the needs are underneath those feelings, and then requesting my needs to be addressed, which may or may not always happen, of course, but that's like the Bible of relationships for me. But I was asking my husband just like 10 minutes ago, which one was the book that was the biggest for you? And it actually is the same one that I would say. Harville, Hendrix, and Helen LaKelly Hunt, who have a book called Getting the Love You Want.
Oh.
Have you heard this one? It's actually
No.
It was an Oprah elevated book way back in the day, but apparently for good reason. When we were going through a really tough time, my husband said, would you just listen to this book or read this book? And I said, no. And then I did anyway, when I would go on my quiet walks. And something really shifted for me when I heard my summary of the book is this: we meet our partners and we discover we have come home. We have finally come home where we feel like we're truly connected with someone that sees us so deeply and so closely. And we're like, oh, they get us. And oh, we're finally with someone that appreciates who we really are. And also we discover soon, oh, we're home. We're with the person that most reflects all the stuff from our home, our family of origin, where we go, damn, we're home and we got to deal with some stuff. And the combination of things helps when we come to that place of acceptance that we're actually engaging in a relationship for the purpose of restoring ourselves or coming to a place of greater healing. Then we can maybe look at the relationship a little bit more openly or with greater reality. So those are the biggest ones for me. Do you have any, Sonia, that have been powerful for you?
I remember reading, and I don't remember the author, it's a woman, and it's something like Kill All the Marriage Therapists or Kill All the Marriage Counselors.
Oh.
It has a funny title. Yeah. And I think she has a podcast as well. But I remember the contempt one was big too. Yeah. I don't know if she had a list, but she had some sort of, criteria of things not to do. And criticism was also like, it didn't matter what they did. Like if they unloaded the dishwasher or loaded it, like the opposite of what you would do, you don't say a word, which for me, I found to be very hard.
Well, none of this is easy, right?
The hardest stuff, I think. This is the hardest stuff. And yet it's like this stuff where we're truly, just like they say, more is caught than taught as a parent. And that's always the case, sadly. I wish it weren't so, but it is. And that's the same thing with our relationship. They're learning how to deal with conflict, our kids, because of what they see or not, which is probably both. Because we actually do show up in ways that we don't even see right now, that in 10 years, hopefully we'll decide that wasn't quite the right way to show up. Right. And so we need to be always committed to growth, but our kids are always watching us there too.
That's so hard. I think for me, a big turning point for, I guess, the way that I related to our marriage is somebody, and I don't know where I heard this, but somebody made a comment one time, and it wasn't to me personally. It was a podcast or a book I was reading where they said, you may not want your husband, but somebody else would be grateful to have him.
Right. Beautiful.
And I was just like, oh, Oh, and I sat with that for a little while, and I had to acknowledge that contempt that I'd had and what was underneath that. And I really, truly thought that I was better then. And I really thought that I knew more then. And I really did. And I'm embarrassed to even say that, but
No,
I really thought
your
that I was the
honesty.
best.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I had to look that in the eye and say to myself, like, really, someone else would be grateful to have this person. What would they see that maybe I don't see? And I had to sit down and come from a place of, okay, I'm choosing gratitude. I'm choosing to look for the good. And we know with parenting or with marriage, when we commit to looking for the positive, we will find it. I had like shut that off, and I had to acknowledge some real issues in my own heart and decide, no, that's not who I want to be. I'm better than that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't think I'm actually at the place where I'll ever be. This is why I don't like parenting books. And now you're going to hear, Sonia, that I also don't like marriage books. And the only reason I don't like all of these things is only because of that prescriptive nature, that this is the thing you need, go do it. And I'm like, but I'm trying to do it. Just, there's some principles in the John and Julie Gottman book where I'm like, I've always been trying to do that. Why isn't it working? And then for me, the only thing that really has helped move me forward is, well, humility, of course, but self-awareness, like growing in my own self-awareness. What are my real attachment challenges? And I don't know if this is your scenario, either of you, but that attachment word used to mean something very different for me. It always meant like breastfeeding till they're 15 and, sleeping with them when they're married. I don't know, like baby sleeping or co-sleeping. Yes. But now I come to understand, oh no, this attachment thing really means something to you, girlfriend, because you did not have it. And so then I've my entire life had to address attachment issues. And how this is my personal experience, but expect wild, unrealistic things from my partner to satisfy the needs that I have. And that is my default setting as a 2, an Enneagram 2, you can see the overlap, but wanting that to be satisfied by someone that turns out human and not God.
Look at that. Hey,
whatever, you're human. Yeah, even though he's Sonia, he's a 1. He's a perfectionist too. Yeah. The learning about that attachment and learning about self-awareness has been the biggest thing for me.
So good.
Or self-acceptance and self-compassion and all the self things that way back in the day, 20 years ago, I would have said, oh, that's just selfish.
You know what I would love? I like parenting books, but I like the ones that give practical plans, not just theory. Because my filter is always, okay, that sounds great, but how do you do it? How do you do it on Tuesday at 5 when someone's having a meltdown and you've got to be somewhere in an hour? How do you do that? So I don't mind it, but you know what I think would be perfect is a parenting book like that was practical, but also with a coach to help you apply it.
Right. Yeah.
Why, what's stopping you from doing it? What's coming up when you try to do it? What is overwhelming? What are the feelings you have as you think about it? Like, so to be able to do both, I think would be, I'm just dreaming now, but to work with Teresa or myself on the stuff underneath and at the same time have a practical plan. Anyway, that would be my bias. Yeah,
that's my experience too. And I must have spent enough money to put a few people through college by this point for all the things that I've engaged. Like, who needs a degree in this stuff when you spend that much time doing it?
I know. It's so worth it. So worth it. Couldn't we have that for marriage too, right? Wouldn't that be good for marriage? A practical book or plan, and then someone to work with for accountability and follow up. That'd be perfect.
Yeah. But somebody that knows what they're talking about, because I have experienced so many that some people don't really know how to engage something. They're kind of in surprise, although I've been in surprise too. I mean, I have had this repeated experience in coaching as well, that when people are addressing their needs, they're not recognizing that it's shadowed or it's reflected in their relationship with their partner. And then whatever partner challenges they have, that's something going on inside of them. So I do often have conversations about relationships, which usually they're not expecting to engage.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how can we work on our marriages simultaneously when we feel like we're giving everything we have to our kids and, teaching them character and how to do chores and get their math done?
Yeah. Well, I think that that's the point of reference, like that. This is actually why I focus on coaching the way that I do, is that I actually think the only person you truly can control, although I still have my places of trying to at times, is yourself. And so how you show up or how you see the world or how you frame things, like your perspective, all of that really does influence how you show up in all of those different relationships. And just like you, I or at least I hear you saying that you've had a huge perspective shift, and just you're setting yourself to say, I'm going to have a perspective shift. And so you did that. And that's the same with me, is always these looking for the perspective shifts or looking for the opportunities for growth so that I can show up differently. And then it's like a domino, everything starts to change around me.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. For me, once I shifted and I turned towards my husband instead of stonewalling him and pushing him away and being defensive and criticizing, I worked on the antidotes to them. So can I go over them briefly?
Absolutely.
I don't want to just talk doom and gloom. Like, it's not all terrible, right?
No, but we all know, because we've been here, done that for years, that we know that it's challenging.
This is not easy.
None of us are in the first 2 years of marriage.
No. This is not easy. It's going to sound simple, but it's not easy. And it does, you're right, Teresa, it takes that intentionality. So we talked about criticism. So the antidote to that is talking about your feelings, using I feel rejected, I feel hurt. So talking about yourself, and that takes a lot of vulnerability, especially when you're used to being attacking. It does feel like you're exposing yourself, and it's almost like you're giving your partner what he can use against you. You're giving him ammunition and saying, okay, if you use this, it's going to really hurt. But it takes a vulnerability to say, okay, I'm going to take a step towards my partner instead of away. So I worked on that. I'm still not always awesome. Defensiveness. You need to take responsibility for what's yours. And this is something I work with families on all the time. Even if your sister is 90% at fault, you still need to own your 10%. This is what I did wrong. We have to model that in marriage too. Sure, maybe your partner crossed a line. Absolutely, that might be true. But what did you do in that? What did you do? And I used to have this way of sounding really smart and calm and quiet. And it was so condescending, and it would just like jab, and he knew it. And I knew full well what I was doing. It was my way of getting him back, but I would look very smart and innocent, but I knew exactly what I was doing. So I had to take responsibility for myself. Yeah. And just like you said, Teresa, I'm in charge of me, and I need to own what's mine to own. So there's that one. Stonewalling, we talked about that. The antidote to that is self-soothing. And it's really what we're talking about, right? Being able to find that rest, being able to take care of yourself. Self-care is taking care of yourself. So doing what you need to do to calm yourself down, to be in control. And then the last one, my nemesis, contempt. I had to, and he says, build a culture of appreciation. I had to decide to look for the good. I had to remind myself of my partner's positive qualities, and they were there. They were there the whole time, but I had just chosen to ignore them and find everything negative. I had to actually make an effort of sitting down, okay, making a list. These are all the good things. And it started with, if you don't want him, somebody else would be happy to have him. What would they like about this person? They'd probably like his goofy sense of humor. I get sick of the same joke 100 times, but they would probably like that. Okay, I'm writing that down, right? It took me making those shifts in my own marriage. And now, to give some hope, now we work together, which we could never have done 5 years ago. I don't think we could have done it. And now we work together on the radio every day, and we're completely open and vulnerable, and we have to trust each other.
I love that. You, by the way, Sonia, you can check her. Well, that sounds wrong. You can check her husband out. on Instagram, but the two of them talk about marriage, and they both host a radio show together. And I'm just like, wow. But he is, to me, the quintessential radio show host personality, right?
Yeah,
Big,
he's a goof.
larger than life sort of. Yeah.
Yes.
But he improv, no problem, right?
Oh, I know. And at one time it was all annoying to me and it was stupid, right? And I was so negative. I was no fun. Now I look back and I think, man, if he wasn't in our lives, we would be like school all the time. So we're best friends now.
Awesome.
We really are.
That is so lovely. So what drew you in the beginning? Because I find for myself, the thing that I find annoying is actually the thing that drew me in the beginning, right?
100%. Isn't that odd? Hey, I think it's the things that were lacking in myself that he had that drew me to him. I loved the goofiness. I loved the quirkiness. I loved all of the things. And, I loved all those things about him. Yeah. And then over time, I think I felt like he wanted me to be more like him. Yeah. And I wanted him to be more like me. And so we didn't see each other's strengths as strengths. We didn't see that the two of us together, all of our strengths count. These are the strengths of the team. Yes. Whereas we used to fight about random things like he likes a clean house. This is a homeschool issue, right? He's got a little bit of OCD. I think he comes home and if he's been stressed out at work, he comes home and he starts sweeping and wiping and checking, right? Dusting. And for years we would fight because my brain would make that mean what you just come home and you can't even relax because my house is so clean because you think I can't even take care of my house because I already swept that floor 2 hours ago and now you're sweeping it again. Clearly you think I'm incompetent. Right. So, and then there's a fight. Whereas now, instead of being at odds, I see, okay, we're a team and we have strengths together. And I know that he's handy and he's clean. And so I'm going to leave the floor because he's going to do that when he comes home. I love that. I can't leave the floor. Right. I know he's going to do that. And we're not going to fight about it. And I don't take it personal anymore. Even if I have cleaned the floor and he comes home and does it. And I mean, it's not always that, but if he has a stressful day and he comes home and he's sweeping, I don't take it personally. I'm like, oh, he's had a stressful day and this is helping him to feel like this is one thing he can do and it's done. Exactly. Yep. And actually that's why things like the Enneagram are so powerful for me, because I can see where the strong areas are and the not so strong areas are. And then I look at it and I say, okay, here's the superpower in that strength. But then also if there's a superpower there, that means that they're not likely to see this thing over here. And it just, when we honor that we are different, then we're not looking at each other thinking the other person is, I don't know, an alien, although sometimes it still feels that way. So I won't lie. It's true. I see it more like we are a team and we each have different strengths and weaknesses that we bring into it. And I think that's changed for both of us. We don't fight about those things anymore. So one of the biggest things, just as something that relates to our kids, one of the biggest moments that I had in a therapist's office is when someone had said to me, can you allow him to have a relationship with your children that is not you having a relationship with your children, like allowing him to have a relationship that is separate from you? And I went, if he does it my way. Right. No, I didn't say that, but that's what I was thinking. Yes. Yeah. Yes. I think I can relate to that. I used to beg him and nag him to go for walks with me, and we'd go for these walks and I would just unload everything that was wrong with our life and our kids and our home and our marriage and our work. And to me, this is great because I'm an Enneagram 5, I think it is. And so I want to research and explore and uncover. And so if we just learn enough about, anyway, he is not the same as me. Lo and behold, go figure, he stopped wanting to go for walks with me. Can you believe it? He didn't want to go for an hour of me criticizing everything in our lives. Well, surprise, surprise, right? So he's a 7. Am I wrong? I think he might be the 3. He's the one that is the entertainer. Yeah. I think it's a 3. I'm like, of course. He's either a performer or he is just fun or both. I think so. But
Yeah.
he really also wants acceptance, and he can be hurt. I can hurt him easily if I'm not careful.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, for sure. That was really formative for me. But the only thing I can remember from my own book that I wrote about marriage, and I know I wrote a few things, but is that you have to be very considerate or careful about where you are having connections, intimate connections. As a homeschool family, you have a different challenge in this thing.
That's true.
It is
That
true.
is true.
Nobody talks about that one. So I just got to throw that out there. We don't have to stay there, but I just say lock the door or warn the kids. PTSD is a real thing.
We learned the hard way to put a lock on the door.
So did we.
Tell you, the next day we had a lock on the door.
Yes.
Yeah, no, Sean is a fan of shoes in the dryer. He's a we got to dry some shoes.
No, that's the best tip. This entire time together, that'll be the best.
You're welcome, everybody. Shoes in the dryer.
Perfect. Yes, that is perfect. I love that. Okay, now I don't know where to go.
Yeah. Where do we go from here? Really?
Yeah.
Something that has, as long as we're on that topic, something that Sean and I have really worked on. You know how they say there's 3 areas marriages they fight, right? It's money, kids, and sex. And we don't fight about money or kids anymore, but we still fight about sex. We still do. And so last year we started something, and we just decided to schedule it. We just decided that it's being scheduled because I will never feel like it when I'm tired at the end of the day. So I feel like, you know what? I want to schedule dates. I want to be like, hey, on Tuesday, we're going out, we're doing this. I can look forward to that. I can be excited for that. At the same time, we could schedule intimacy. We can look forward to it. We can mentally, ladies, wrap our heads around it, make sure we have space for that. We're ready.
Yeah.
So I think that's been a game changer for our marriage.
Oh, that's really good. Yeah, that is really good to say that. I think for me, that was definitely the first, 5 years of marriage, or not 5 years, 5 years of homeschooling, where I realized this was going to have to get scheduled here somewhere, because all of a sudden we turned up the extracurriculars, which happens in homeschooling, and then all the activities. And then I'm like, okay, my husband's already working 80 hours a week at a baseline, and then he turns it up on his busy weeks. So, when? And when? Well, I share in my book.
All right.
So one of my girls said, I read some of your book, Mom. And I went, oh, I wasn't counting on that. Yeah.
Whoops. Yeah. Let's have a talk. Hey,
let's have the talk. Yes. Yeah. So where would you like to go? What areas do you think we should talk about when it comes to marriage and homeschooling?
Well, I thought it might be great to ask Sonia, since she's here. Like, what do you think is a big struggle that you're finding in your relationship?
The biggest one we have, besides scheduling, and we kind of do that. I think that's just the reality for busy moms and dads. Yeah. Is homeschooling, having like different, and this is really about kids. This is really about parenting and how, different theories or different ways that we see, philosophies we have about raising our kids. And I think we're just very different, and that's probably what appealed to me, is that we sort of balance each other out in a way. We come from very different backgrounds, so we bring different things into our relationship. But definitely with homeschooling, and even with our 2 kids in public school, I definitely play a certain role that I often fall into, and he's more of like the go with the flow, it worked very well for him, I guess, in some ways, like school and everything. So that's the biggest one for us.
Well, if I could, Teresa might have some tangible, if I could just offer something to consider and it's similar, and I use this when working with families and different issues, but I think it's really helpful to have a conversation, an honest conversation with your partner, and try and get underneath it. So if he has an opinion like, well, I don't want my kids to do chores, I'm just making up something. if he has an opinion that he doesn't want to enforce some kind of rule, he just wants everyone to be able to relax and do what they want and go with the flow, then I would want to know, okay, like why? What is it underneath that? What do you want the feeling in our home to be? And he might, I mean, I'm guessing he might say something like, I want it to be relaxed and easygoing and lighthearted and fun. And I want everyone to be happy. And so I would try and get to those core values. What's important to you? What does it mean to you to have that feeling in your home? And if you can have an open conversation, he might say something along the lines of, you know what, that's what I always wanted growing up. Maybe he had that, or maybe he didn't have that. And he really wanted to have, you know, an easygoing, lighthearted home where there wasn't anger, because if we make our kids do chores, we're going to have to get mad at them and enforce it. And then it's not going to be the feeling he wants. So try to get to the core value that's underneath all of the things. Maybe the core value is happiness, contentment, and let's honor that. We can't really change our core values. Like they're really deeply important to us. So how can we honor that feeling? And then for you to be able to share, okay, well, this is why I really want to have some rules or enforce or whatever that is. And these are the feelings I want in the home. And these are the core values that are really important to me. So then together you have to say, okay, these are our couple, our family, these are our core values. How can we honor them? It's not that one is better than the other, and we're not ever going to change. Like I'm not going to change my core value. That's always going to be important to me. So how can we honor them? Maybe it looks like some creativity. Maybe you have to find and negotiate a kind of middle ground. Maybe you need to focus on one day. And this is true. Maybe one day is like school day, and maybe the next day is lighter. So you can have a mix of those different feelings in your home. Is that helpful? So a place to start is, what is the feeling you want to have in your home? And then ask why. Why is that important to you?
That's beautiful. Yeah, I love that. Values. And it's kind of speaking similar to the nonviolent communication book refers to needs, but it's very much the needs are coming from the value. What do you value, which means that you need to be self-aware.
That's right. Not always easy to have these conversations, but it does work really well when I'm working. Sometimes in workshops and bigger groups, I'll say, everyone close your eyes and take a deep breath. And I want you to imagine, you know, it's a summer day, 10 years from now. So your kids are going to be much older. They might even be married. You might even have grandkids. What do you want the feeling to be? What are you doing? Are you playing sports, having fun? Are you sitting around the table talking? Are you on the couches reading books and snuggling? Like, what is the feeling you wish, that you desire for your home? Yeah. And then we work backwards from there and say, okay, that's the feeling you want. How can we get more of that for you?
That's right. That's beautiful. That really
so maybe everyone do that. That's our homework. Me too.
Closing our eyes, breathing deeply, and imagining how we want to feel. And you can't say breathe without me not wanting to breathe. It's what I do. Even on
shoulders down, drop your shoulders, take a deep breath, right? And it's interesting. My husband, the feeling he wants to have in the home is everyone sitting around the table laughing. He's a goof, right? Like he wants he wants it to be laughter and fun. And for me, I love debates. Let's have like a philosophical discussion about something, or let's go for a hike in the woods. So recognizing that, you know what, we both matter here. So how can we get both of those? And let's work backwards and can we get them, you know, one day a week? Can we get something for everybody? Maybe the kids, if your kids are older, maybe they have a feeling they want in their home. I was working with a family that had teenagers, and the parents were really frustrated because the teenager never left his room. And then when we talked with the teen, he said, but why? It's so boring out here and nobody ever wants to talk. They just watch TV. And we found out that he really wanted to have supper at the table, and he really wanted to talk about politics and the news and what's going on in the world. And he wanted to have deep, interesting conversations.
Well, he should come here. We're always doing that.
Isn't that interesting, right? And so once we figured that out.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Ask your children their values as well. Yeah,
maybe incorporate what's the feeling they want to have in the home? Maybe they want a little more fun. Like if Sean wasn't around, they would want more fun. I guarantee it. So let's be intentional about trying to hit all of those things, because they count too, right?
Yeah, that's beautiful. That is beautiful. What do you think we're not missing because, or that we are missing? When I wrote about homeschool kids having the audience of parents, no, they are the audience to their parents' marriage. Yeah. So not trying to induce a mom guilt. So funny enough, I told you, I'm really not,
Oh,
because why would I do
yeah.
that? It doesn't fuel anything and benefit anybody. And also then looking at it objectively and saying, so what are they learning? What are they learning about this right here? Like, what are my parents' values? Do my parents value harmony? Do my parents value, like you said, humor or lightness or deep philosophical connection or discussions? But how do they decide to show up together? How did they decide to communicate? Or like, what are the dynamics? They're learning all of that. And also they come from a different point of view. If you have more than one child, you realize they absorb all of these things very differently. But, what are they experiencing? What are they watching?
Oh, that one's hard. Well,
It is hard. Yeah.
two
And I'm
things
not
come to
bringing it
mind.
up fun.
No, I'm good with all of this, Teresa.
Yeah.
Two
I'm
things
not
come
your
to
fun
mind.
girl.
One of them, I think, is, and you're right, this is not to induce mom guilt. I have done
No.
all of these things,
Yeah,
and
me
there's
too.
still grace, and our kids, and we get along. And I think part of it is that humility that you were talking about, Teresa, of being able to go to them and being like, you know what, I'm still working on this.
Yeah.
So just a practical one where, Sonia, you said you've struggled with criticism and, being self-critical, but then of course that always leaks out onto people. And my oldest son is now 23. And he said something to me when he was, I don't know, 19, 20. And it was painful, but good for me to hear. Cause I think I thought I was hiding it. I think I really thought I was navigating this well.
Yeah.
But he said, Mom, I always felt like I wasn't good enough. I always felt like no matter what I did, you would find something to criticize. And I was like, oh, it's true though. How, if we are thinking of ourselves, and again, another reason to work on ourselves, another reason to do the things and get the coaches and the tools and counseling and all the things, right? Because for us to think that we're going to hide this, it's going to be like this secret we carry and nobody's going to notice. It's not true. If we are critical towards ourselves,
yeah,
it is going to leak onto our kids, and we're going to be critical to them. Even if we never say a word, it's in our body language. It's in the look on our face, the way, our eyes, it's there, and they pick it up. And there's definitely a tension where they can sense that, oh, mom's not pleased. She's seen that I've done something wrong again, as usual, And so I've really invested in reconciling with him. Like he's good, but I don't want him to live out of that. So I've encouraged him to work on himself. I've offered to pay. This is a standing rule in my house. I will pay for any therapy my kids need. And I'm assuming they will all need it. That's just, you know what? I will pay for any therapy you need because of me, because I'm an imperfect human being that is figuring this out as I go.
Exactly.
And to think that I'm not going to make a mistake. Right. So that's one real practical area where I saw that, oh, you know what? I do need to invest in my own self and also in the relationships around me. And some of that is damage control. Some of that is going back and saying, you know what, that was never my intention. I wanted to hold you to a high standard, but I didn't want you to feel less than.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And we all have that. But I think that actually that's part of a bigger, maybe the bigger purpose in life, the meta kind of discussion. Why are we experiencing these needs for change or growth anyways? And I think these children are placed in our lives to compel that growth, but they get to a certain point where they start saying things that you're like, wait, you're not supposed to see me clearly. That wasn't part of this parenting thing. You're not supposed to be able to call things in a way that I don't even quite see as clearly as, even though I know you're right, I don't want to say you're right because you're 16. You're supposed to be learning from me theoretically. Yes. It's very uncomfortable.
but yet it's so accurate. They see everything.
So accurate. They see us clearly. And it's an opportunity. Either we get our back up and we become less real for them and not owning our stuff, and then showing them how we really shouldn't be engaging in life. We should be engaging in a growth mindset. Or we say, okay, I'm not seeing what you're seeing, or I'm not quite clear on what you're saying, but I'll hear what you're saying. And I'll try to see things from your perspective, or maybe, like you said, the therapy angle, or dig deep into something. It is very uncomfortable though. Oh,
huge. Even just to say, thank you for telling me, and let me think about that. And can I come back to you tomorrow, or can we talk about it in a week, or can I talk to you in an hour,
or even 2 years?
Yeah. Right. Just give me about 5 years and I'll work on that.
Yeah. But let me catch up to what you just said. Yeah.
So that's kind of my shock thing is, thank you for telling me. Let me think about that.
Right.
And then I go and cry, and then
exactly.
And then I come back. Okay, I can handle this.
Well, if you go into parenting, I know I've said this a lot, but if you go into parenting, this is why I don't generally like the parenting books, because when I went into parenting, I had this idea that I'm going to read all the books, because I did read a lot of books before I was a mom. And then I'm going to get all the ideas so that I'll know what I'm doing, because I already knew I didn't have the tools or the setup for a healthy dynamic. So then I thought, well, I'm going to read all the books and then I'll be ready. And then I discovered, nope, that didn't work either. And it turns out it's like an agreement almost with the universe that, okay, I'm going to grow instead. And of course I learned from many different books, or I wouldn't have a Homeschool Mama book club. And I love reading now, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to have it figured out. And even though I can be given tools and I can be given ideas, if anything, it just compelled me to feel like I'm not measuring up to the parent I'm supposed to be. And then I did it, and it was so tricky. It was so challenging for me. Know how to, where do I put my big emotions? How do I, how do I give to them perfectly? Oh, I can't give to them perfectly. What do I do? There was such a scramble of imperfect parenting. And then gradually I came to realize the very humbling truth that that's not a thing. It's actually not even, I believe it's not even the thing that we're supposed to be doing as parents. We're not trying to be perfect and make sure that all their needs are met. I think there's yes, but also no, that ultimately the buck doesn't stop with us. So,
right. And that implies too, that you kind of stop being yourself when you have kids, because then your job is just creating these perfect human beings who are going to excel academically, but also be perfect in every other way. And so then our identity gets wrapped up in that, and we lose our own selves. And then we find ourselves, needing the Homeschool Mama retreat every year.
Yeah, exactly. Which is great. You just join me. Yeah. You're a consummate radio show host. You're on. You and me at the Canadian Homeschool Conference. That's super fun. Yes, exactly. Even if you're American, you should join.
Yeah, we'll send you. Teresa will send you the link next time. It's free.
I know you're American, but it is really fun. And yeah. I can wrap there, but if there's anything else more you want to talk about, I can go deep into this relationship. I also think there's something very beautiful. I don't want to wrap on the challenging stuff, because I actually think that everything that we're doing in our relationships with whoever, but especially with our kids' parent or their father, and whatever we're doing, we are showing our kids how to do this in an increasingly healthy way. We're showing them how to communicate. We're showing them how to have their needs met, how to meet someone else's needs, to be fully alive in the presence of another person and fully and authentically you, and that allowing that other person to be fully authentically them in your presence. And it's a really beautiful thing. Every bit of that investment.
Yeah, I agree. I think, I think it's kind of a popular phrase now is radical self-acceptance.
Yeah.
We've heard that before, right?
Yeah.
The self-acceptance piece is huge. And I don't think that I could get to a place of accepting my husband until after I could accept myself.
Exactly.
I don't think I could do it. I think I would have perceived things as hurtful. I would have taken things personally. I would have overreacted. I would have responded with emotions until I could accept my own flaws, my own weaknesses, the strengths, all of it. This is who I am, good, bad, everything. This is me, and I accept it. I couldn't do what I'm doing for a job today. I would not have the marriage that I have, because again, just like the criticism leaks out, that acceptance leaks out too. So I was able to widen my circle, accept my husband, good, bad. I didn't see his weaknesses as attacks. I saw them like, oh, you know what? That's not his strength. I didn't take it personally. I didn't respond with the emotions. And from there, I think it's affected our kids. Yes. Because instead of them seeing as me versus him and me trying to change him and me being, displeased with him, and I'm raising these boys and I don't want them to go and find a bossy woman who would control them. Right. So I thought, okay, I need to work on this. And now, hopefully 9 times out of 10, they see that we are a team and that I love their father, and they can tell, they can sense when it's, when it's authentic, that I love him and I accept him and know he's not perfect. And I see that and I love him anyway. And that's what I want for our kids. I want your kids to find someone who sees all of them and loves and accepts them the way they are. That's what we want.
That's beautiful. Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing. We're creating this atmosphere. Charlotte Mason talks about creating an atmosphere, but I actually think our homeschool marriages are the epitome of creating the atmosphere of what's going on in the home. Every effort we put into the marriage is benefiting the homeschool.
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah. And you can write off whatever you need to spend for that as homeschool curriculum, because that is foundational.
Yeah. Trip to Monaco. Yeah.
Has to happen.
Has to happen. Yeah. It was such a pleasure meeting with you again and chatting with you both. Always a pleasure. Thanks.
Thank you for having me. I love spending time with you guys. I'm going to have you on my podcast soon, Teresa. And so, awesome. I love that we got to meet and connect today.
Thank you. I love meeting you. And it was great seeing you, Teresa.
Yeah, you too. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great weekend, ladies.
Bye.
Bye.